Are you aware there are various Greek and Hebrew words for congregations, assemblies, and feast gatherings, all mixed together in the translations of our English scriptures? We found this out once we dug deep into the Word using Blue Letter Bible online. In this episode, we will be taking you through our process step by step of answering the question we once had: did Jesus, Yeshua, ever go to church? At the end of this video, you will be able to answer that question easily for yourself. Welcome to the Numbering the Days channel and the first in a series of tips for researching the scriptures. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is how I start searching. If I can only remember a part of a phrase, then I use Start Page. You can find things here you will not see on other search engines such as Google or DuckDuckGo. We have proved it to ourselves in our study group. At first someone didn't believe me, and now everyone does. They've proved it to themselves. So this is what Start Page looks like. Here's your link down below. This helps me when I really can't find something. For instance, I usually enter something here like Bible verse, God said he would teach everyone, or Bible verse, Jesus' greatest commandment. And it'll come up with a bunch of options, and I'll be able to tell from all the results what the verse is. And you're going to find I usually find instantly what I need, even if I get some of the phrasing wrong in the verse. I'm not a big user of Bible Hub. I have heard it's really good and found tutorials on YouTube. Please make comments on the video of what online tools or software you use. I'd really enjoy knowing what you use in your own research. Now let's search in what I routinely use. Once I know a verse, I go to Start Page, or the search term I'm going to use, I know exactly. So then I go to BlueLetterBible.org. And this is over here where I'm going to be entering in my search phrases and my verses. Now I have a caution for you. Be aware that the words you enter into this tool must be exact. This is the stickler. It does not do partial word searches. So for instance, if you enter in feast, it will not pull up verses where it's feasts. And if you enter in year, it will not pull up verses where it says years. This is a challenge using this tool, but once I became aware of it, then I understood what I was dealing with, and so now I deal with it. For instance, here's year. We have 367 times and 322 verses. And I'm going to pause the video so I can show you this difference. Okay, so I pulled up Blue Letter Online and I've entered in year as my search term, and it returned 367 times and 322 verses. However, if we use the word years, then it occurs 539 times in 450 verses. So that's the challenge I have found with Blue Letter, is understanding that sometimes I end up having to search twice to find all the verses that I want. So part 2 is going to be about how I searched on a particular word one day named church. You know, it's a word we're all familiar with, and I went to my trusty Blue Letter Bible and I typed in the word church. I'm going to show you this in a minute. I always use this tool and the King James Version consistently, and I'm going to show you why in study. And it has helped me in my attempt to link scriptures and follow the Hebrew and Greek words. So that's the version I stick to. I'm not saying it's the best version. I'm just saying I stick to it because it's easier to link things and understand the scriptures for me than if I get into modern translations where they don't say church, they might say household. I mean, though they've changed all these words, and then it's hard to find all the verses in scripture where something was used. I have, but I don't use PC-based software. I find some of the resources that are online are point and clicker for me to get to the information I want to know than using eSword. So that's why I use this. And I'm going to show you how I searched on the word church. I've got pictures here in the PDF file for you, but I want to show you live. So I've pulled up Blue Letter, and here's the big search box. I put in church. This is where you can change the version that you want to use. I'm picking the King James, and I click the search button, and it comes back and it tells me that this has occurred 77 times in 76 verses. So let's see what happens if we change the version of scripture that we're going to look through. So now I'm going to click the Amplified Bible and click this, and now it has changed it to 103 times and 100 verses. So this is why I wanted you to notice this in case when you come to study, and if you use this tool, this is something that I've found that I had to pay attention to. The other thing I want you to notice is that the very first verse and the results are all in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. There's no Old Testament Septuagint references being pulled up here. And if I switch this to the Amplified, we're going to see the same results. It's starting in the Brit Hadashah. Now that's something else I want you to notice. Now you might say to yourself, well, Sierra, that's because church was not even created until Yahusha came and started it. If you think that way, keep watching, and I'll prove you incorrect, very politely. I was trained to think the same way, and you might still be thinking this way, and that's okay. Now, the next place on my search for the church I looked was in the Lexicon to see what words had been translated as church. It will show you the original Hebrew and Greek listings, like I'm going to show you in the moment on the screen, and I've put in the PDF file for you to track along. And as you can see, the Greek results up here listed 2 words, and I'm going to show you when you click on exact match, you end up with just 1. So let's do that real quick. So we're back in Blue Letter. And the lexicon, to get to the lexicon for the word you're looking for, it's right here on this tab. And it'll tell you how many results down here in this box. And it first pulls up any part of the word. So down here we have robber of churches. So that's why it's pulled this entry in. If you want to look for exactly what you're looking for, then click exact match and click this button again. And then it will refine the results. And as you can see, the word church appeared nowhere in, that's what they want to tell you, the word church appears nowhere in the Old Testament. This is part of what we're going to talk about later on. But it has appeared in the Brit Hadashah as the ecclesia, church assembly. So we're going to click now and drill down into the Strong's number. This is how you do it. You just click there right on the reference for it. And it's pulled up the ecclesia. So switching back to my PDF file for just a moment. So here we are in the PDF file, and I've given you a snapshot of the ecclesia, so when you print this out you can follow along step by step. Now the pronunciations found in this software are modern Israeli Yiddish sounding words of the words. I have read several teachers admit that no one is 100% sure just how the ancient Hebrew people who spoke the Yehudyath language sounded out everything. I'll teach on that more someday, as there is evidence for this in Scripture, but that would be a tangent right now. So now, while this page may have some really good resources, I have come to see by comparing information here to other resources such as the Klein's Etymological Dictionary that Strong's does not have everything, and neither do the commentaries. It is apparent to me that starting in the times of Noah and Abraham, men understood that if they controlled history, what is written and published and taught, that truth could easily be lost, controlled, changed, and rewritten. This is only something I understood over the years and can't put here in a few words either, so just keep watching our channel. How many times have we all known that we have to remember the context of something? We live in modern times and have witnessed, just in my lifetime alone, the transformation and redefining of words, turning them upside down. For instance, the word gay, happy to gay, a sexual orientation. Or some the word bad to mean cool man, that's good. So when I saw the word ecclesia, I wondered, where did this come from and what did it mean? I wasn't familiar with it. I had for a while a connection to a wonderful young Greek woman whose college days were in beautiful Athens, Greece, studying philosophy and the ancient language. She was just a gem of a beautiful young lady. She filled us in on the ecclesia, and while I can't share her with you now, I can give you this resource. She confirmed what is on the Wikipedia page that I'll show you in a moment. She was the first to tell us the Greeks invented what it means, and it is a Greek term not borrowed from another language. Modern Hebrew is only an estimated 30% biblical Hebrew words, and the rest are borrowed. German, Yiddish, Aramaic, Arabic, all kinds of languages. This really needs to sink in because all the electronic tools, translators, are using dictionaries and lexicons based upon the modern Hebrew. It is getting harder to find and more expensive to purchase books with an ancient understanding. So my next step in my wanting to understand the church was to go to a Wikipedia page that I'm going to show you now. If you go search on Wikipedia, there's an entry for the ancient Greece ecclesia. And it will tell you that it was the assembly of the citizens in the city-states of ancient Greece. The ecclesia of the ancient Athenians was well known. It was the popular assembly open to all male citizens as soon as they qualified for citizenship. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, to the beginning of our country with a whole bunch of states joined together, and you had to be a male and you had to qualify for citizenship. I'm just going to scroll down for a minute. A typical meeting of the assembly probably contained around 6,000 people out of a total citizen population of 30 to 60,000. So it wasn't everybody that was there. A quorum of 6,000 members was required sometimes to do business. They would rule judgments on punishment. You really need to familiarize yourself with what an ecclesia is and how it differs from the word church. I'm going to go back to my PDF file now. So we can see here that the apostles writing in Greek used an ancient well-known Greek word relating to assemblies of citizens officially summoned. Think Moedim or Holy Convocation, a Kodesh Mikra. Judgments and national decisions are being rendered. I want to share a brief story. Nikki, our Greek friend, is passionate about Jesus, whom I cannot pronounce the word. She had this big, thick Greek accent, but she would say something like Jesus. I can't do it, but anyway, she is adamant and firm about the point I'm going to tell you. When a Greek person who is native reads the Apostle John's writings in the ancient Greek, they know immediately that John, Yochanan, was a native Greek person as they read it, and it's fluid. It's like she said you could obviously tell the difference between someone who is Greek and that's their natural language and their culture and they just speak fluently. But when the same Greek person reads Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the Greek does not flow. She said she could tell that it was not their original language. and I know that we have historical evidence that there was an original Hebrew Matthew of the text. I know there is much debate about this subject, but we found her opinion about John to have some weight, given her culture, language, and where she studied at the source of where the word for ecclesia even comes from. So remember, by this time in history that the apostles were writing, many Jews were Hellenized, and they could speak the Greek language. If you are not familiar with this part of history, then I've got an article here where you could go read about it. It made a lot of sense to us that Yahusha would have picked someone to be his apostle that could write fluently in the Greek language. So to be thorough here, and I was thorough in my research, I had to figure out just what the word church meant, since I discovered that, in the Brit Hadashah it was actually ecclesia. Then what is the word church? Where does it come from? Here's a link that you can click on to go find what I'm about to put here on the page. The word church is Old English. It comes from Circe or Circe. Please don't hold me to any of these pronunciations. Place of assemblage set aside for Christian worship, the body of Christian believers, Christians collectively, ecclesiastical authority or power. From Proto-Germanic Kirka. Also Old Saxon, Old Norse, Old Frisian, Middle Dutch. It said it was important to note that church is not exactly a translation of the Greek word ecclesia. The term church actually is derived from the German Kirche, which in turn comes from a Greek adjective kirkion, meaning belonging to the Lord. And that Lord right there can be Kyrios. So it could have belonged to the Lord of someone in Turkey. It could belong to a Lord Abraham, and could belong to a Lord. Or possibly the Latin word comes from circus. In the early church history, when the New Testament was getting translated from the Greek into Latin, there was no clear equivalent in Latin for ecclesia, and so various terms were proposed. You can go on here and to read about it. One surprisingly common term used by various Greek writers was theisos, or party, which generally referred to a troop of revelers marching through the city streets with dance and song, often in honor of Bacchus, the god of drunkenness. The point is that many early writers did not know how to translate or to describe the term ecclesia, but the terms they proposed offer tantalizing clues as to how the church functioned and was viewed during its early years. Are you glad that our Latin forefathers went with church, or would you have preferred one of the others? Court, party, city of God, or maybe even circus. Sometimes I think the church is a circus. All this is coming from this article that I gave you a link to. I read a bunch of articles when I was researching this out at first. So I want you to ponder what is being said and check out the link above. It's part of the reason we believe that the Ruach HaKodesh is leading many onto the ancient path who are seeking truth. So many people start to ask intelligent, simple questions of pastors, and they are not trained to answer them, and so they brush you off or cast you out. I heard a pastor who went to seminary and graduated admit that they had used lots of books written by men about the Bible and studied those in their classes much more than they ever actually did deep dives into the scripture itself. Think about the story of Yahusha casting the demonic spirits into the swine and consider this. Remember, Circe is the Old English word for church. We just saw that above in the etymology. Circe, in Greek legend, is a sorceress, the daughter of Helios, the sun god, and of the ocean nymph, Perse. She was able, by means of drugs and incantations, to change humans into wolves, lions, and swine. Now you could go read about this here in the Encyclopedia Britannica. She changed humans into swine. Today they grow human organs and do research with swine. By means of drugs. These two things. Someone can change the DNA of humans. You could read more about it here. So what was really going on back then, and why did people who profess to follow the risen Christ call their buildings and assemblies churches? This word appears to be something almost opposite to the meaning I've come to understand of a Moedim set-apart convocation to Yahuwah, who says to eat clean and be Kodesh. The first man to translate the scriptures directly from Greek and Hebrew was William Tyndale. He was the first to translate the word ecclesia into congregation. He went against the tradition of the norm at the time of not calling it church in his translation of the scriptures. I urge you to read about him, and learn about the various versions of scripture as they came to be. Here's the link. I have placed a most profound and appropriate quote below. He went to Oxford University, got his bachelor's and his master's degree, started to translate the scriptures, and said this, quote, "They have ordained that no man shall look on the scriptures until he is modeled in heathen learning 8 or 9 years, and armed with false principles, with which he is clean shut out of the understanding of the scriptures," end quote. I have found that to be a very interesting quote. Be sure to become familiar with the syncretism in the early church history and how many pagan words beliefs were merged into the scriptures and beliefs of the official church of the empire. A good video to start with if you're unfamiliar with church history is right here. Here is an excellent article with the following quote down below. In the King James translations of the Hebrew scriptures, the so-called Old Testament, the translators consistently employed the gloss assembly, while in the New Testament they used church. Thus they obscured the connection to its Jewish roots. Anti-Semitism hides in the strangest places. That's part of the issue I found. Remember, we earlier looked and we saw the word church nowhere in the Tanakh. A book that does a tremendous deep dive into words and history is Come Out of Her, My People. It is an adult book written as a harsh, stern chastisement. Partially, I think the authors had quite a reaction to find out just how much the congregation was cut off from its roots, as the author of this quoted up here. This book is not for everyone, but there is much they did a lot of research, and you can learn from them, but it's very harsh sounding. I just want you to be aware. I got really angry years ago when I started learning many things, and we must remember this has been a journey for everyone through time, and many people did the best that they could with what they had. We've all been born into all kinds of cultures on this world, and we're trained a certain way to think a certain way, and we go to schools and they teach us what our culture teaches, and our parents teach us what our parents teach us. I mean, that's how it works. But just imagine that some were burned at the stake for just having in their possession one bit of scripture, and people died. I had to remember people died so that I could have the privilege of what I'm doing right now. I'm studying at a level they never imagined you could study. So I do agree with Tyndale that not knowing the original language is a big issue. And today, with the flood of words coming at us, full of disinformation all over the internet, we have yet another challenge to overcome. But I've given you some good things to chew on. I'm going to go to the next part. Now, for the subscriber who asked the question, here's where you're going to get your answer in part 5, searching backwards using the Septuagint. So I wanted to know where this Greek word that existed during the time of the Septuagint was used. I figured if they said ecclesia in the Brit Hadashah in Greek, that there had to be an ecclesia somewhere in the Tanakh, because the Septuagint was written in Greek. And I'm going to show you how you do that. I've put it here on the screen, but I'm going to go show you now. We're going to go back into Blue Letter, pull up church. Oh, I didn't need to go through the step, but you understand. Go through these steps again. Here it is down here. I was on the screen I needed to be on. Sorry, folks. This is new at having to film myself doing things like this. So when you scroll down through Blue Letter, all the verses are down at the bottom. But the thing I want you to pay attention to is right here, where I'm circling on the screen, and I've circled on the PDF file for you. View the Old Testament results in the Septuagint concordance. So I click right there, and you're still on the same page. All that happened, I'm sitting on the Strong's entry, but what happened is now I get the Tanakh verses. So we switch from the New Testament to the Old. Now I want you to notice when you do this that you're still, on the same definition, and notice how we don't see the word church anywhere. In fact, if you scroll down this tool, it's not going to tell you which words in English match up to the Greek. By that I mean there's nothing in this list stating where the word is or how it got translated. If we go back, you can see easily in the New Testament, church, there's the entry, church, church. You see it tells you in here what word. It's the Strong's number is right next to the word that it was translated from. But in the Old Testament, you just don't get to see that easily at all. Now I'm going to drill down and use this verse below, 1 Kings 8:55, because it's short and it's easy to spot which English word probably came from ecclesia, was translated from the ecclesia in the LXX. Some of the time it's really not so easily, and I have manually checked, just so you know, every single one of these results. I have checked them all by hand. Well, not by hand, but online, and it took some work to do that. Okay, I'm sorry to keep switching back and forth, but I want to go, we're going to go find the verse in 1 Kings 8:55. And he stood and he blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice saying. So we're pretty sure that that's going to be the word that we're looking for. So we're going to drill down on this verse. And in order to see the source text, you click once more, because it took me to 1 Kings chapter 8, and it's highlighted what the verse. Oops, I want 8:55. Oops, sorry. And so here we are, and I got to click on it again, and a new screen pops up in this program for Blue Letter. And I want you to see at first that it's showing us Hebrew. And as you can see, it's matched up what was translated in English to the Hebrew word itself. Right up here in this tab is the Septuagint. And when you look at the Septuagint, it doesn't do that for you. It's got a whole bunch of Greek words down here, and you don't see the English on it. It's not matched up, and as you can see, here's our word ecclesia right here. Same Strong's number as was over in the Brit Hadashah. Now, if you know of any free online tool similar to what I'm showing you that matches up the Greek Septuagint to the English translation in an interlinear fashion, please do share in the comments, because I'd like to know where to find it. Okay, so here we see that the congregation in Hebrew is H6951 kahal, which means assembly, company, congregation, or convocation. And I'll show it to you right now. So we'll go back up here and find it. And he stood and he blessed all the kahal. H6951, and I click on that, and now I'm in the Hebrew, the concordance information, the lexicon information for this word. Assembly, company, congregation, convocation. So if you hear somebody in English say Holy Convocation, you could end up in a Strong's Concordance on H6951. And if you do not think this happens, I have personal experiences with someone who is not on the internet and only uses books, period. That's all she has. And a few times she has shown me things in her studies and was completely lost because of how Strong's works and how the English can point you in many different directions. So where I pulled that definition from, and then, I'll show it to you in a second, and make sure you understand to look and see how it was actually translated. You'll be surprised, maybe shocked, if you do this enough, to understand that the dictionary and commentary do not always equal the actual King James translation usage. Okay. And in order to show you that, in order to try to help you understand the point I'm trying to make, that I may be not making it very well, I'm going to show you a verse that's a part of what my husband just did for week 5. Be sure to watch that episode. It's going to come out in conjunction with this. He's going to talk about Zechariah 4:9 and the word finish. So that's what we're going to go look at. I'm going to drill down into this verse, and we're going to go look for finish. Okay. The work of his hands also shall finish it. So let's drill down into H12:14. And it's been translated twice. It's been 16 times in Scripture to cut off, given, greedy, coveteth, covetous, cut, finish only one time. So, and Zechariah is the only verse where it was translated as finished. There's a verse where it says fulfilled, to get, perform, wounded. Okay. In the outline of biblical usage, it actually means to cut off, break off, gain by unrighteous violence, get, finish, be covetous, be greedy. And when you come down here, there's all kinds of dictionaries and stuff that are all on this page, which is why I'm kind of showing you this. If you go into the Strong's definition, it means it's a primitive root to break off, usually plunder, only figuratively to finish. Covetous, cut off, gain greedily. And when you look down in the verses for its use, it's amazing that in this one verse in Zechariah it was said finish. So my point is that you need to look at the various resources that you have here, but a lot of times just because they give you a definition here, sometimes they're going to translate it a way that does not match the very definition that they're giving you. That was my point. Okay, so now we're going to check the verse Leviticus 23:2 and drill down into it and see the reason you need to have some opened eyes and understanding about what a Moedim truly are about and what it represents. And I talked more about Moedim and its definition in the first fruits video that we just did. So when you go to Leviticus 23:2, it says, Speak unto the children of Yasharel, and say unto them, concerning the feasts of Yahuwah, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. Pay attention to the color coding. Let's go drill down into this verse and find out what word is being in our English Bibles as convocations. And we're going to see that it is this entry down here called Korah for congregations, and yet it is a kahal as a congregation. You would think that a convocation and a congregation might be related, then they really are two different Hebrew words. So let's pull up Leviticus 23:2, and this should give you Speak until the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning my moed, my feasts. of Yahuwah, you're going to kara, you're going to proclaim them. Convocations, you're going to proclaim convocations that are holy. And I'm forgetting which word I'm wanting. Yes, the convocations word. Okay, as a mikra, convocation, assemblies, calling and reading. A sacred assembly. Being called together and read together. You would think that this might have been the word church, but it's or ecclesia, but it's not. The point is that when we get together and have our moedims that are holy convocations that are very set apart, it's not the same thing as the ecclesia. Okay, so let's go back to a verse that you're all very familiar with, probably, and I want you to look at it in a different way. I want you to have your eyes that you're seeing now with Matthew 16:18. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. No, it's ecclesia. A called out assembly, an official governing body, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Ask yourself, are the gates of hell prevailing over the church or the ecclesia, the kahal, the set apart assembly? I just realized I need to mention that Matthew 16:18, this is coming out, this ecclesia, I'm getting out of the Aramaic Peshitta, and I'm not going to show that today on the screen, but that's where this is coming from. And I put that at the front of the PDF file for you to remind you. Now, Revelation 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. So you have to ask yourself, come out of what? Which one above fits the meaning of what Apostle John wrote? Remember the word church and where it comes from. Please watch the video that we did on the Festival of First Fruits. You will learn much about Paleo Hebrew, Yehudiath, and the meaning of the Moedim, and a few other words. I go deep dive into that video. I know it's long. Just watch it in parts. So we're going to pull this verse back up here. 1 Kings 8:55. And he stood and he blessed the congregation, ecclesia of Israel, with a loud voice, saying, it's the word ecclesia, which we trace back. Now, I use the Aramaic Peshitta text that is translated into Hebrew. It's from the 1800s, in order to take words from the Tanakh and take them back into the New Testament. So we're going to do the reverse of what we just did in part 5, going in the opposite direction. I have my own system I created for this, and I'm pulling information from. You can do homework yourself to verify it with biblically based research tools. The connections you see are from things that I've been researching. So I wondered, what was Paul persecuting, really? Saul persecuting. Saul was not entering into a new type of building built by Yahusha and his followers like we have now for worship, as this church was not even created yet. In Acts 8:3 it says, as for Saul, he made havoc of the church, entering into every house and hailing men and women, committed them to prison. And in the Hebrew translation of the Aramaic, it's a variation of the word kahal. It's the ecclesia. Even though it says church in Acts, it's the ecclesia. Now, there was the trial earlier in Acts of the martyr Stephen, who revealed something about why they murdered him. Acts 7:38. This is he, speaking of Yahusha, that was in the church, in the wilderness, with the angel which spake to him. The angel that's speaking to him, you can read about this clearly in the book of Jubilees. It makes this clear in chapter 1. In the Mount Sinai with our fathers, who received the lively oracles. The word lively in the Aramaic and Hebrew is living. It's saying that he gave them a living word that was alive. This is you can also find this in Hebrews 4:12. To give unto us. So when you look at the Hebrew here for this verse, it's the word kahal. Again, it's the ecclesia. So Yahusha, this is he that was in the ecclesia in the wilderness with the angel that spake to him. So this is how I take something from the Tanakh, and I can go back and find it in, you won't necessarily see this all the time in the Greek. I go from Hebrew to Hebrew to help me keep my research clear. So there's just a bit more. What was John writing about after Saul Paul's time had come to an end? Remember, Apostle John both wrote about those that would be cast out in chapter 16:2, as he found even himself being refused fellowship. Imagine that. I'll show you below. Many believe he was writing some of his work after Saul Paul's ministry had come to an end. So the beloved disciple of Yahusha was being refused entry. 3 John chapter 1, verses 7 through 12. Because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we might be fellowshippers to the truth. I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. Us means John's included. Apostle John was refused fellowship. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds which he doeth, prating against us with malicious words, and not content therewith, neither does he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of his church. Beloved, follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doeth good is of God, but he that doeth evil hath not seen God. I read this and I really wondered to myself just what is really going on here. To refuse the Apostle John fellowship in the church. Now we're at the last part 7, the binding of the strong man. What better way to deal with people who are going to read the scriptures than to be the one who tells them what it means and put it into languages they speak, instead of teaching them what the original languages meant. While Strong's Concordance and other resources can be wonderful, and I have a bunch of them and have a wealth of information, I have found them to be no substitute for learning the language itself, and sometimes they can be downright misleading. Our modern day electronics are a tool that both the forces of evil and those for good are busy using. The watchman of the house really needs to be crying out an alarm over the proposed plans to have somebody write their own Bible. All kinds of videos and shorts are being produced all over the place using questionable sources to earn a lot of money very quickly by people who may not really care if it's true or partial truth or even fiction. Copy and paste dollars quick and easy. Matthew 12:29. Or else how can one enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house? Not thinking one day, I blurted out to a friend, I thought that Strong's Concordance was the binding of the strong man. Over time, if you watch this channel, Yah willing, you'll see example after example proving my assertion. You do not have to believe me. I want you to prove everything out for yourself. It once was just my theory that after a preponderance of the evidence that I have found becomes more and more factual to me all the time. I'm not saying that the people who wrote the Strong's Concordance back in the 1600s or whenever it was written, I don't remember the date, there was anything necessarily evil about it. I think a lot of people have done the best they could along the journey. So I'm not here to judge anything. I'm just saying that for me, in this day and age, modern times, I have found it to be something that I have struggled with once I started learning the language. Let's just leave it at that. If people are so glued to their blue screens and believe everything they are seeing without being able to verify it, they are vulnerable to lies. You see, I had to learn that even when I go on to BlueLetter.org, which is a wonderful service that puts all the information from all these books on there, that sometimes it's not telling me everything I need to know. We have already noticed how on search engines it's becoming harder and harder to find information and easier to get information of questionable sources and integrity. I wish the watchmen were on duty and would have alerted me to what I'm about to show you. I am only going to broach this subject very lightly now, as it's another big study for another day, Yah willing. Let me leave you with this as a teaser. If you want to know more, do comment, or I may just keep moving on with other videos for now we have planned. I study the Hebrew and the Yehudieth, and do have a couple of students and enjoy having more. If no one comments on this video, I will not continue into this teaser until there are more people who want the information. So I asked myself, how many words are there for congregation, assembly, tabernacle, and temple? Oh my, what did I find but multiple words? All kinds of multiple words have been translated into the single word that I read by King James Bible in English. If you study the original languages, you would understand this, and it should not be so, because we are missing some meaning lost in the translation that I believe is very valuable. Here are just a few examples for you. When you look up the word congregation in the lexicon, as I showed you, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words that have all been translated congregation, and all these words do not mean the same thing. And if we worked up the word assembly, there's some overlap here, but not all. So my point is I have found some of the words that I've looked up have 43 different Hebrew words that are all meaning the one word in English. So there's a lot of things blurring together. The one that I just must point out here is moed. The word moed is up here. Right there, moed. It's the root for moedim, that many only think it means a feast or a festival, an appointed time to Yah. It's like, hey, let's have Passover dinner tonight, or we're all going to go get together on Feast of Tabernacles and go camping this year. And that's a blessed, wonderful thing. Happy times, fellowship, food, etc. I'm not knocking that at all. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just an incomplete understanding. And if that's all we focus on, then you're missing out on some of the meaning to it. The word moedim, has been translated 67% of the time as congregation. The other 5 are words translated. There are 5 other words also translated as congregation. I hope you're getting my point. So it's a really worthy study to find out the differences and discern the additional meanings. His moedim, his congregation, is not the weekly trip to a church, synagogue, or temple, although his people may be going to fellowship in buildings to study every week to keep the Sabbath. Even Yahushua and his apostles go to synagogues to preach, to teach on the Sabbath. I'm not knocking that either. But a synagogue is not the same equivalent to a moedim and the congregation there. I mean, everything just gets blurred together, and there's more depth of understanding, and that's the kind of thing we hope on this channel to bring to your attention. So if you like this study and want to do a deep dive with me into synagogues, tabernacles, temples, just let me know in the comments. If the study has blessed you, please let me know, comment, and please share it with other people. I hope the things that are shared here will help the word grow and increase your discernment when you're reading the text. May Yahuwah bless you. Baruch you.